So welcome to this meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee held on Tuesday, the 21st of July. If a fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by the nearest exit and make your way to the fire assembly point in the car park. The agenda papers and other relevant information for this meeting are available for public viewing on the Herefordshire Council website, and the council is streaming this meeting live on the YouTube channel and is making your stream. Others are permitted to film, photograph and record public meetings, providing it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. For participants in the room, please raise your hand and indicate you wish to contribute. This is because we're not using the other room. When invited to speak, please speak as clearly as possible and project your voice towards the microphones, which I think are in the ceiling. Please ensure that mobile phones, laptops and other devices are turned to silent. For participants in attendance remotely, can I request that you use the raise hand feature within the system if you wish to contribute and to introduce yourselves when called upon. Please note that only committee members present in the meeting room may vote. Item 1 is apologies for absence. Have any apologies been notified to the clerk? Thank you. So we have no substitutes. Does any member wish to declare an interest on an item on the agenda today? Yes, Frank.
Item 9, only that I myself have been subject to that and I may wish to comment when we come to item 9.
Frank. Item 4, minutes. The minutes of the meeting held on 9th of June are included in the agenda papers. No matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer. Are you content that I sign the meeting as an accurate record? We all say we're happy with that. Thank you. There are no questions from the public and no questions from councillors. So we move straight on to item 7, which is the exemption from contract procedure rules. I won't make any introduction. Rachel, should we go straight to you?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this report comes to the committee to provide assurance that we are making exemptions to the contract procedure rules and that the controls in place are robust and appropriate. So this report first came to committee a year ago following a recommendation from external audit and in line with our contract procedure rules. And you'll see at paragraph 8, we have outlined the exemption activity in 25-26. We approved 17 exemptions from the contract procedure rules, and that's compared with 5 in the previous financial year. And the reasons for those exemptions are outlined in Appendix 1. What you will see further in the report is an analysis of the exemptions at paragraph 10. And a significant proportion of those exemptions were in respect of statutory utilities or works that can only be delivered by a single provider, with a number of other exemptions relating to urgency and community and public safety. 2 exemptions were not supported, and those are identified on in table 2 at 16 and 17, and these relate to requests that were made, but where the justification and consideration thought that procurement could have been considered much earlier in the project plan, but nonetheless the service determined that it would still proceed with those. They relate to active travel measures, and it was considered appropriate by the director to continue with the existing designers to go through that work. And that was considered low risk because they were below the threshold under the Procurement Act.
Okay. Rachel, I think it's really helpful to have all the detail. Yep. It's just about balance right, I think. I don't know who actually wrote all that report, but well done to whoever that might be. I do have one query. Item 14 is the removal of waste from the A49 Green Lane site, and that's quite a substantial amount of money. So that one went through, and I just wonder whether you've got any more information that helps to back that up, or whether you'd like Mark, who does, I think, have some information on it
to share the response. And from my perspective, we supported that exemption because of the urgency of the work required. Hazardous waste, if you leave it, can tend to be more costly to remove and to remedy at a later date. So that was the reason we supported the exemption in this case, to ensure public safety and clean up of that community space.
Yeah, there's a massive build-up of waste, which is quite close to the River Lug, I believe, which flows down past that road on the A49. And the rubbish attracts rubbish, and it was just growing. So you have to stop and get rid of it as quickly as possible. But it had been there for many months, and there was a lot of concern, local concern about it.
So if it had been there for several months, I'd have thought that a phone call to a number of suppliers would have been possible, but presumably in this case it wasn't possible.
My understanding is that timing wasn't available, and so that we took this route again with the primary motive of removing the hazardous waste and protecting the public that could pass that easily and into the river as well.
Yes, I can see the cost, but what steps have we taken to prevent this waste being tipped there again? We've been continually getting fly tipping on various patches of ground. What steps can we take to prevent this?
I think you're right in respect of fly tipping. That's about effective enforcement and communicating what we have enforced for wrongful fly tipping. I think we probably need to get some detailed information for you from the service responsible around some of the preventative and deterrent measures that we have in place. So happy to take that away and provide some more information.
Yes, hopefully we will prevent it happening again.
Yeah, I mean, or that might be a question for Cabinet or Council. Rather than this piece.
So,
yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So what I can say, Ulrich, is that we take all the instances of fly tipping very seriously, and I think you'll notice, I think you've had Sean will be more accurate. I think we've had 3 examples where we've taken individuals to court and prosecuted them. I certainly know there's one in Bromyard a few weeks ago, and that's about as much as we can do, so that individuals are aware that we are prosecuting. Cameras are around, people are seen, and that's all we can do to remind people that it's not acceptable behaviour.
Would it be cheaper to put cameras on these sites where they're starting to catch the vehicles coming in?
I don't think that's as stupid an idea at all, because these trail cams are quite cheap, and if there's a place which is a particular problem, then camera surveillance might be a good idea.
If I just say that this wasn't impromptu dumping, it was a site that was put aside specifically for travellers, for caravans, and they'd used it for many months, and it had just been abused terribly.
So Aubrey, I think if you want to take it further, then probably a question to the Cabinet member might be appropriate, and they'll give you the assurance you're after.
Yeah, well, it might be a cheaper option to catch them as they're dumping it.
Kerry.
The overall number of exemptions is quite low, 17 out of 282, and that's about 5% in terms of quantities, not the value. The previous year was about 1.2%, 5 exemptions. Are we expecting that journey to continue in that direction, or are we going to pull it back? And what have we got to put in place? Is this a pattern developing? And I know 2 items is not a development pattern.
I think it's a really good question. I know that Claire Porter, monitoring officer, and I, have this conversation when we receive these exemptions. And for me, it's about looking at the procurement activity and engagement with the services to make sure that we are, procuring at the right time and considering those opportunities, because that's how we demonstrate best
Before it
value.
gets urgent.
Yeah. So one of the things we have a procurement pipeline to make sure that we can adequately resource procurement activity and we can prioritise resources. So we are, that process has been in place for a long time. For me, some of these particular instances this year are one-offs and linked to the nature, again, some of those statutory works and the public safety. We will never have a choice but to exempt those type of procurement, but it's something that we'll keep under review. And we look at this quarterly. You receive the report on an annual basis, but it's something that I look at on a quarterly basis just to understand, you know, is the practice and culture to leave things right to the last minute, or are we working through that the contract register and the procurement pipeline to make sure that we are achieving value for money in our contracting?
Thank you, Chair. So to follow up on that, you don't want to encourage, you know, last minute decisions and things like that. So there were two that were not, so two exemptions were not supported by monitoring officer and by yourself.
Yeah.
But they proceeded anyway because the director decided that it was whatever reasons that it could progress. So does that imply that the director can override the decision, or is there a case where an exemption is so, you know, unacceptable that they would not be able to override it? Is there any situation where an exemption, unsupported exemption, cannot be progressed? Or is it always going to be the director that has the last call?
I might need to defer to Sean on where that kind of that final say lands, but in these particular instances, they were low value, they were below the Procurement Act threshold, so the risk was accepted by the director in this instance. Because of that threshold meant that we were less likely to get a procurement challenge on it. So in the balance, the advice that Claire and I received and the decision that we made was that actually timely procurement could have taken place in this instance, and still there was an opportunity to do that. Director took a different view because of that preference to work with the existing designers on these schemes. Sean, I'm not sure whether you're able to provide that answer on.
Yeah, and I think it does come back to what has been permitted by the Constitution. So the Constitution does allow that to happen, but it can't cover off every situation, and there will be ranges where the Section 151 officer or the monitoring officer would say, well, actually, you would not be able to override us in this circumstance. Yeah. So when that consultation of reported forward, yes, there's the feedback and the update and the updates to what is progressed. But if there was something in there where you looked at and thought, well, this is bordering on, you know, this is hundreds of thousands of pounds, where's the value? I think there would be a further conversation there and further action if I was in that position.
Yeah, I mean, if Claire and I had a serious objection to this, be under no illusion that we would raise that, and we would follow that through, you know, to the very highest rank through the statutory officer group if necessary.
Thank you.
I think that last answer has probably clarified the point. I mean, what we would hope to see is that if you have significant doubts, you would tell the director that you've got doubts about an exemption, but then it would still be up to him if he wants to discard your doubts. But if you're beyond that and you say absolutely no, you ought to have the last word on it. You're the Section 151 officer, so you ought to be able, not the director, but you should have the last word on a case that you feel very strongly about. So,
and I think as Sean's pointed out, that would be on
basically what we're saying.
Yeah.
And the monitoring officer, as you can also refer back to chief executive, head of paid service, referral to council if you believe that it's not in accordance with the rules. A call-in could happen if by any member who saw that decision and thought, well, this has gone too far. So that although there are those levels of control and security there.
I like the fact that the director can decide not to accept your misgivings. I think that shows that there's strength of leadership in that area. But if it's serious enough, then yeah, okay.
And it's transparent at the end, isn't it?
Yes.
So, you know, we've got it here shown.
But again, this comes to me on a quarterly. I would review this on a quarterly basis. So if I did see a rising trend, I'm not waiting for the end of the financial year to understand that. I'm living it, and obviously because they come across my desk anyway for approval, I've got a sense of whether they are increasing or not.
Yeah. And as the council, we tend to get criticised for too much bureaucracy and a long process and that kind of thing. So it shows there's a balance.
If there's a pattern and Rachel can see that pattern and have a feel, then she needs to have a look at what is causing that pattern, and have we got something that's stopping the flow of things happening.
An example of that in the new financial year would be around I may have seen some frequency around a similar kind of building,
Yes.
for example. And so my challenge back to the service would be, please can we have a look at the maintenance schedule? Because if we are reactive and continually exempting because we've run out of time, have we got a good grip and understanding of the maintenance schedule for this building to inform that procurement activity in a more proactive way? So yeah, absolutely, those are the kind of challenges that we raise through the process.
Good, well, I think we'll move on. That was really for noting, no particular vote required. I think we have the assurance which we need. Item 8 is the annual review of council information requests and complaints. Claire, are you going to introduce the site and start with? Welcome to the meeting.
Yes, the report is outlining our performance on information requests and complaints over the 25-26 municipal year. So to just talk you through the headline figures, information requests, over the year we dealt with 922 FOI requests and 247 EIR requests. And the overall response rate was 97%. That's above the council's target rate of 95%. And when benchmarked against other local authorities, the council performs well. Request volumes are increasing. We do try and combat this by proactive publication of information on the council's website. We also have a disclosure log, so we're publishing any requests and responses except for those that have had an exemption like personal data. To date, we've published over 3,000 of those. And we also try and respond to some requests business as usual. So if a request comes in and the information is on the website, it's been answered on the log, it's easily answerable. We'll deal with it that way rather than formally logging. We dealt with an additional 213 that way last year. It's a faster process for requesters and it makes it easier for the service areas. We are seeing a rise in the number of requests for an internal review, a lot driven by AI. And 13 requests were referred to the Information Commissioner's office. In 6 cases, the Commissioner upheld the Council's original decision and we're waiting for them to investigate in the further 7 cases. We also received 234 subject access requests. Again, the volume of those is increasing compared to previous years. The vast majority for social care information and the response rate for those is 78%, which is below target. The work team involved in dealing with subject access requests is very complex. It involves officers often going through thousands of pages of documents and redacting accordingly. We have worked with staff in Children and Young People's Directorate last year to try and improve the process and the experience for requesters. So we've developed handouts, FAQs, a glossary of social care terminology, and we work with service users to get feedback on those documents. The information governance team also monitor low-level data security incidents, near misses and allegations of breaches of data protection legislation. In the last year, 307 were reported to us. High figures not necessarily a cause for concern. It can be reflective of sound reporting processes, high levels of staff awareness through the mandatory training all staff have to complete annually, and it's indicative of an open culture and reporting things which have gone wrong. Only one of those incidents met the threshold for reporting to the Commissioner and no action was taken against the Council in that case. We do try and learn from incidents, so they're fed back to directors every month in a monthly report, and it also feeds into training, communications to staff and where necessary changes in processes and procedures. I'll hand over now to Tilly to talk you through the complaints part of the report.
So overall, the report looks at the formal complaints that were processed and accepted this year for investigation. Hopefully you found the report provides some assurance that complaint handling arrangements are effective and that they are improving, and that the report highlights clear areas where management attention is also required. We processed 482 complaints last year, which is a reduction from the 560 we received the previous year. Of those, 48 complaints were referred to the Ombudsman, which again is a reduction from the 55 we had in the previous year. Compliments that we've received from external third parties has increased from 174 to 310. And complaint volumes have continued on the downward trajectory over the last 4 years, which suggests early improvement in early resolution. The adoption of the complaint handling code has strengthened consistency, transparency and overall complaint management across the council. We've seen a real improvement in that in the last 12 months. And as you know from last year, we were one of the pilot local authorities that embedded the code 12 months ahead of most local authorities. Service failure remains a common theme for complaints across the council, and as previously explained, just because a complaint is categorised as service failure doesn't necessarily mean there has been a failure. It means that the complainant feels like there has been a failure. Complaints about staff attitude, behaviour and communication remain low, which demonstrates positive interactions with members of the public. And in corporate services, the largest complaint category related to delays or incorrect information. This was mainly linked to council tax matters. We've worked very closely with that service. This is a spike we see year on year. It is expected. The corporate KPI target is to respond to 90% of complaints on time. The Corporate Service Directorate was the only directorate to achieve this target, with only 5% of responses being late. Performance remains a concern for community wellbeing and economy and environment. We're working very closely with those directorates to improve that KPI target. We're working with not just the directorate as a whole, but specific services that seem to be struggling with responding to complaints. Of the 482 stage 1 complaints we received, 100 of those escalated to stage 2. We expect to see a higher number of escalations as complainants become used to the new procedure. The escalation procedure is much more transparent, it is open, and we found that members of the public are, as they're becoming more informed of their right to escalate to stage 2 as part of the new process, they are escalating. So we're expecting to see that to increase again next year. Of the stage 2 investigations, 38% of those were completed out of timescale. Now, as we're in our first 12 months of this new procedure, there are going to be teething issues. Timescales for responding to complaints have changed, they have shortened. So as officers get used to new procedures, it's expected, but it is an area of improvement and something we're keeping a very close eye on. Of the 48 ombudsman notifications that we received, most were either closed at initial inquiry or were outside the ombudsman's jurisdiction. And of the complaints that were upheld, they were primarily linked to national recognised pressures such as the SEND and the housing services. So again, it was expected that we would receive an outcome of upheld for those cases. Completion rates for lessons learned remains low. It's something that CLT are very aware of, and it's something we're working with services closely to help improve. One of the things we've done is include the lesson learned template into the complaint response templates. The investigating officer now only has one document to complete, rather than previously the response template and a lesson learned. And I just wanted to update you on the recommendations that were made as part of the annual report. You'll have seen those. So recommendation 1 was to ensure all directorates meet the corporate KPI target. To support that, officers have been signed across multiple services to be the point of contact for overdue complaints. So rather than contacting multiple managers, we have a point of contact across, in multiple services. And that there is targeted support in place for services that need that additional support. So that's it's different for each service. So I'm meeting with some services weekly, I'm meeting with some monthly, and we're looking at dip sampling certain complaints to see if there's areas of improvement. So it looks different across the board. The second recommendation was to improve performance at stage 2 and to reduce delays. The local government ombudsman released training program this year. A huge amount of managers have put themselves forward for that training and are booked on. We are actually waiting for new additional dates because we've got more people wanting to do the training than dates that were available. So the ombudsman are going to put on new dates for us. We're just waiting for confirmation of that. But as I say, we've had a huge amount of senior managers that have already been on that training and are booked on future dates. Recommendation 3. We're working very closely with the comms team to update the webpage. And as part of that, we will have the You Said We Did specific page on that. We agreed with CLT that the learning fields wouldn't be mandatory, but they would be looked at as a case-by-case basis. Some complaints, it may not be that there is specific learning to take. So it wouldn't be that the learning template was mandatory, but that it was expected that you would look at it as part of your investigation. And as I say, the website is under review. Recommendation 4, we continue to explore the offer of resolution at early stages, so whether complainants are open to working with services rather than going through a formal complaints procedure. And this is not something we encourage, it's just something we offer. And the idea behind that is that we want to emphasise to members of the public that are using our services that we want to work with them. This seems to be well received. And then the final recommendation related to compliments. We're working with the comms team, and it was agreed with CLT that we would share not just internal compliments but external compliments as part of staff briefing as well, because it's lovely to hear about compliments from your colleagues. It's also really important to hear about those compliments received from, as I say, third parties and external sources.
Great, thank you very much. Shall we start off with any questions for Claire?
I'm holding on to it.
Only on me. Okay.
Any questions for Claire about why? None. So Claire, paragraph 6, the response rate 78% was lower than you had hoped, at 95%. A lot of these are about children's, is that right?
Majority, yes, the vast majority of the children's, either from care leavers, and that can be historic care leavers, or it can be from parents.
Yeah. And how do people respond to the delay? I mean, it takes time to get the information together. Are they sympathetic or?
In some cases not, no. They obviously do want their information, but it's purely, we're working as fast as we can. It's just purely the volume of documents that we need to work through and redact, because there is often a lot of third party information in there. And we're having to take all of that out.
Yeah, confidentiality.
Yeah.
Right. We'll move on then to Billy. Yes, Peter.
Thank you, Julie. That was great. I just wanted to give a little bit of information on what comprises the stage 1 and stage 2, and what qualifies something to be considered to resolve this one or to move to a further plan.
The decision to escalate lies solely with the complainant. So we cannot refuse an escalation. Any member of the public has a right to make a complaint. It's accepted at stage 1, and it usually goes to the team manager or the senior practitioner in the first instance to do a full investigation. Once the complainant receives that response, they are given the information on their rights to escalate. At every stage, they're signposted to the Ombudsman as well and given all the Ombudsman information. And that's something that we do very well. As I say, the request, the right to escalate, sits with the complainant. We asked for them to come back to us within 20 working days. And we do ask for the reasons for escalation. It's always helpful for us to know what is it they remain dissatisfied with, so we can do a second investigation. That stage 2 is not a review anymore, where it was previously. It is a second investigation by a second officer.
So it's very much case by case.
Absolutely.
It depends on the qualification for moving forward to a further stage is if the complainant doesn't accept your first attempt.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think the important part of the escalation process is understanding what is it specifically they're not happy about, because it's very easy for somebody to come back and say, I want to escalate. And of course they absolutely can, but for us to be able to respond to them in the best way possible, we need to understand why and what is it they're not happy with in the response that they received at stage 1.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Tilly, there's one thing about complaints is that you're always going to get them every year. And in a way, that's a marker of how well we're doing. So if a complaint keeps recurring, and you said when council tax period comes round, there's always a spike. So in other words, we know the sort of complaints that are coming through and you know how to handle them. So why haven't the lessons been learned to prevent those complaints, or are they all unique?
I'd say a lot of complaints are unique, and I think you've all heard me say before, I really genuinely believe that complaints are an opportunity to learn, and we should see them as an opportunity to learn, and not take them as a criticism. You know, the people making the complaints are people experiencing our services firsthand. So if we use council tax as an example, Rachel knows every year we're going to see a spike. Now, there is learning to be taken in how we communicate with members of the public. So whether that's understanding that they would prefer an email or a letter or whatever it might be, the most complaints we get about specifically council tax is the amount. Understandably, people aren't going to be happy about the amount. So I think perhaps for context, what's helpful around the spike with council tax in particular, we don't uphold the majority of council tax complaints because the information we've given is correct, but we've had to go into perhaps a little bit more detail as to why their bill is that amount, for example.
If I just add a bit of context to that, I think that a lot of the complaints that we get around April time are linked to a misunderstanding around the council tax bill that they receive. So they'll have heard that there's a 4.99% increase. What they won't have taken into account is the parish precept and the police and fire element of their council tax bill. So I often receive a number of letters to say, you know, I was expecting it to go up by 4.99%. I'm exaggerating the politeness of those letters sometimes. And it's a different percentage, and we publish the parish precept increases. You know, we go through the process of approving those at full council. So I think it's a bit around education information. Interestingly, I think we probably receive more complaints than we do engagement in the budget setting process. So I think that's if any residents are listening, that would be an opportunity to influence.
No, I've noticed that you include a leaflet as well, and there's a leaflet with the council tax which explains the whole breakdown. Still, the other thing, Tilly, if I may, sorry, Chair, is that okay? On the you on page 46, there's a section there about send related complaints and the fact that they admit for early stages and provide a remedy. It seems a practice is that they provide a remedy on complaint. So like they wait until there's a complaint before it gets fixed. But you said that you were going to look into some ways of working with the directorate to prevent that, or what sort of things were you thinking of?
So we actually had a meeting yesterday specifically about send complaints. Now there are national pressures, and hopefully the report gives real national context.
Yeah, there's been changes as well to the national standards. Yeah.
It's not specific to Herefordshire. All local authorities, the Ombudsman as well, have seen a huge increase in send related complaints. The reason we put the remedy in after the complaint is that is the Ombudsman's expected practice of us. So we receive the complaint and then we put the remedy in, and that's why a lot of the complaints that when the Ombudsman makes their final decision, it's upheld because yes, there was fault, but there's no further action because we've put a remedy in place. So I've spoken to the team, as I say, yesterday. They're in a really difficult position because the complainant has the right to make a complaint, and yes, the complaint is upheld, but because of various pressures the service is under, they're not able to necessarily meet all of the targets that they need to meet. So EHCPs being completed within that, I think it's 20 weeks, that time scale, 12 weeks. I can't think of the exact weeks off the top of my head, sorry. But within that time scale, they're doing their absolute best with the resources they have available. They continue to, I know they meet with complainants, they're meeting with families, they're keeping them in high levels of communication. Something that the Send Service are very, very good at when we get a complaint is they are phoning the complainant same day, next day, offering a meeting, having a phone call. We talked yesterday about what can we do. We don't know is the very honest answer. It's a national pressure, and without additional resources, and by that I mean, you know,
see, the thing is they're very time sensitive, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're trying to get your kid to school, to the right school, and term starts and waits for no man. You know, you just they have to get those forms filled out and they have to have their selections made.
Yeah. What I'll say for Herefordshire Send Service is the complaints are not about communication. The communication isn't the issue with families. It's the timescales and the time it's taking to get assessments and things completed. And that's a national issue, unfortunately. But for Herefordshire, what I can say confidently, it's not a communication issue.
I'm a governor at the Royal National College of the Blind, and we have every single year we have students who have gone through the AHCP. They've got a statement that says that they need to go to the RNC. Very clearly they're blind, and their councils are refusing to process it. And you've got students who should have started at 16, 17, 18. So it's a national problem. Yeah,
it's really difficult, and I really feel for the Send Service, and I know I speak to them daily with the number of complaints, and you'll see in next year's report that the numbers have already increased from where we were at this point 12 months ago. So you'll see a huge number next year, unfortunately. All we can do is continue to work closely with them, support them and support the families.
Frank.
it's criminal.
Look at a couple of ward issues, not specifically ward issues, but see if this is what comes through across your desk. So in a certain area of Home Award, I often receive reports that their bins haven't been collected. Now, would somebody naturally come to you to say the bin has? Would you then look at why that bin hadn't been collected? And if it was due to the fact that so many other residents make lousy parking statements and park all of the bins, so the bin lorry can't get down.
Okay, yeah.
Do you follow that through to its logical conclusion as to why that didn't happen? And are you able to make recommendations as to the fact that we should have traffic enforcement effectively and those cars moved off the pavement?
Yeah.
So that was one issue. The other issue relates to another part of the ward, which is very new and hasn't been adopted by the council. So therefore, people can do all they want because there is no enforcement, because the road through Hedgerow Way has not been adopted. If you've got a complaint from residents that live along that road, and it really is terrible what's happening up there as a rat race and everything on a residential side, can you follow that complaint through and say, come on, council, it is time that this road was adopted and we can put things into place? So those are two. I don't know whether either of those issues have come across your desk, but if those do come across your desk, do you take it through so that logically they all get sorted?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the waste service is absolutely something we deal with on a very regular basis. What we do on the first point is we put a service request through for the resident. The complaints process can take 2 weeks. By the time they get a response, it's time for the next bin collection of that bin. So the first thing we do is put a service request in, and we try to understand from the waste service why that bin wasn't collected. So if I give you an example, when we had our first heat wave, I know that there were issues particularly around the smell of the bins. I think that's fair. Mine certainly was smelling. So people wanted them picked up a little bit quicker or a little bit earlier in the day. So we actually did see a spike in complaints. So we were putting a lot of service requests in for bins to be picked up earlier in the day. So that's what we do in the first instance. If there are repeat issues, which unfortunately we do see there are repeat issues with bins not being collected, that is something we would formally investigate. Absolutely. We would want to understand, why is this resident complaining to us every fortnight that their black bin, for example, is not being collected? We've had issues with recycling bins not being collected every fortnight. And again, I'll give you an example. The reason it wasn't being collected is the things in the bin weren't deemed recyclable. That wasn't communicated to the resident. So what we did was communicate that and shared some information about what should be in your green bin and what should be in your black bin. Problem resolved. But yeah, absolutely, if there are repeat issues, we definitely follow that through. The issue of the road, it's not something that I can say has come across my desk at the moment. If it was something that came to me, it is something I would look at. First thing I personally would do is contact the service to understand what's going on, and help with that open communication with the residents. So I can keep the residents informed of what's going on and understand from the council what our position is, and what our plan is moving forward to avoid future complaints.
Thank you very much.
The stage 2, Billy, so it's followed through by someone in another department, presumably. So this is where the training comes in.
Yeah, so it's generally in the same department. So for example, if the complaint service was complained about, I would respond as the service manager in the first instance. If it was escalated, it would then be responded to at stage 2 by my line manager. So it's somebody still responsible for the service, but it's the next port of call, if you like.
So you mentioned that people are stepping forward to actually take on that role. Does that mean they had to be more senior managers? Or?
Again, it depends on the service. So if I use the flood risk service as an example, the principal officers respond at stage 1 because they understand the case management. So they have that detail to be able to respond at that early stage. And then the service manager project is responding at stage 2. So it's depending on services and who is the most appropriate person. But we've worked very closely with managers to understand who, because the important thing for us is that residents feel like their complaints have been responded to by somebody who really understands what they're complaining about.
Yeah, the problem is it occupies more and more of the senior management time when they should be doing other things, really.
Yeah. Some services have more management layers than others, so we can keep complaints away from senior managers. So when we embedded the complaint handling code, one of the things we did was work with services to say who can do that stage 1 and who can we escalate to. So particularly in economy and environment, we try to use the principal officers or the team managers in the first instance before they're then escalated to heads of service or service managers. The thought process behind that is we keep complaints away from directors, service directors.
And 2 other observations, I suppose. One is about AI generated. Yeah. So you're getting increasing, well worded things. So presumably is repetition because AI doesn't, the same words come up over and over again. Yeah. So is that in a way helpful in that you can preempt that a little bit by when the first complaint comes in, you can actually address issues which might then come through the AI. The other question really is there are 100 goes to stage 2. You haven't put in the report. How many of those are turned down? And I did ask you. I think you supplied me with the answer to that. So how many actually go through and get accepted as a complaint?
So all complaints that are requested to escalate stage 2 are accepted. So the 100 that escalated were requested and accepted. So I think, as I said earlier, we don't say no to escalations at stage 2. It would have to be exemplary for us to do that. If there was I don't know, a hateful element to it or something, or if it was particularly abusive, then I mean the first thing we would do is ask the resident to change their language and make the complaint at a level that we could investigate. But of those 100, they were all accepted.
How many were upheld then?
How many were upheld? 8 of those were upheld.
Quite small.
It's a small number, yeah. I mean, our upheld rate is low, which I think reflects on the services improving and being good. And in terms of your question around AI, it's something me and Claire were talking about yesterday, actually. We were saying, particularly in the last 6 months, we've seen a huge spike in the use of AI, particularly around information requests and complaints. For the complaint service in particular, something we feel very strongly about is still ensuring that the member of public who is making a complaint understands what they're complaining about. I think those of us that have used AI know that when it generates a response, it can use all those buzzwords, those keywords, there's a lot of repetition, but it draws on information from various sources, various websites, and And I think we have a responsibility to ensure members of the public understand what they're complaining about, because I think the devil's in the detail. If they don't understand the complaint, they won't necessarily understand the response. So when we get what we feel is an AI generated complaint, we are contacting the complainant to say, we've received your complaint. Yes, we're acknowledging it. And of course it will go for investigation. However, we just want to clarify with you what your specific points are. Part of the reason we're doing that is AI generated complaints are lengthy. We've received some that have been 40 pages. So it's taking up a huge amount of officer time. The smallest AI complaint I've seen is 28 pages. So it's taking up a huge amount of our time, which of course a dedicated team, they are reading it. But I struggle to think that the 43 pages, whatever it might be, have been written, understood and digested.
And it would be very nice to put that into AI and get them AI to do it.
So this is the Ombudsman are actually doing. So that when they're receiving an AI generated submission, they're using their AI tool to summarise the points. That's not something we're doing at the moment. I'm sure that's something that perhaps will change in the future, but as AI is so new, as we're seeing such a spike in them, as I think we've got a responsibility to our members of the public to make sure they really understand what it is that they're submitting, so we can respond to them appropriately. The last thing you want is robots talking to each other.
Each other and
I think I was at the local government association conference and it was mentioned about the ombudsman actually being quite concerned about this. So it's nice that it's part of the local government family.
Yeah, if I can just to follow up on that, it might be for Claire, this one, the way you compile your results, the analysis of the data means that you're looking at a lot of text, and it's ideal for an AI tool to chop through that and pour out the sentiment analysis, especially on compliments. So on page 17 of 24 or page 55 of the pack, you've got across all compliments, clear themes emerged. And I thought, are you doing this? I don't mind if the department's using AI to go through, huge numbers of emails of data in order to find out what the themes are, because that's a great use for it. But so long as you cross-check it. So I just wanted assurance, are you using AI to do this sort of analysis? And if so, are you cross-checking it?
Personally, I'm not an AI fan. So no, I sit and read. I sit and read all of the compliments. I sit and read the complaints, and it does take up a lot of time. But I think it's important that we understand it. So as it stands, I have used Copilot. I'm still learning how to use it. We had a very helpful workshop on it at Leadership Group a couple of months ago. But in terms of when it comes to reporting, I need to understand. I think it's important I understand what I'm writing and then what I'm presenting. So I do sit and read all of the compliments. I think compliments in particular is something we've developed over the last 8 years.
You then categorize them and make the themes, and then you do your charts. But you're doing all that manually, as it were.
The categories, so the 3 categories we've got, that's something I worked with CLT on. So children's services, when Tina started, they were logging compliments, and something we then embedded across the council. So the categories we've got of logging complaints, that's something we've embedded across the board. That's something we'll work with CLT on. It's not something that sort of from AI or from the web or anywhere. It was all agreed.
Very well. Thanks very much. And it's great to see there's so many compliments, in particular in the children's area. When we consider where we were a few years ago, where we are now, it's really improved a lot. And I did like the way that the Ombudsman's reports are set out. It's very helpful rather than having to go to the Ombudsman website. But I was quite curious about the people who are complaining about the code of conduct complaint outcome. Sean, I don't know. I mean, it's something else which occupies your time, doesn't it? Once it's on page 59 that it closed after initial inquiries. It seems that people are complaining that their code of conduct has not been dealt with satisfactorily. They go to the Ombudsman, the Ombudsman has sent it straight back. Is that a fair summary, Sean?
Yes.
We got
that to come. I'll say a little bit about our experience of AI, which is actually Tilly stole my thunder a little bit on that one. But yes, we're finding that we're being challenged on the fact that our conclusions don't agree with AI, and whatever AI produced has somehow trumped what we've looked at. So and then the unfortunate situation is that we have to respond and deal with it like any other complaint. So it does from a resourcing point, it's a bit of a nightmare.
Yes. Great, I think we'll move on. So that's again just for noting with no voting required. Claire and Tilly, if you want to go, please do feel free.
Thank you very much.
So now to item 9, Sean, sort of introduction.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Chair. This is my update on the Members' Code of Conduct and contains information about complaint investigation arrangements for the full year for 25-26 up to March 2026. Starts on page 63 of your reports pack. You will probably recognise the report because it looks very similar to ones you've seen every 6 months. What I will do, I will have just six themes reported by exception for discussion. The first one is that the number of code complaints have increased to 51. In a typical year, it's around about 30. But notably, 24 of these were raised in 3 complaints against 3 groups of members. So there is a jump, but because there were possibly AI-assisted complaints raised against groups of members. Just so you know that we have changed our process slightly, so we don't investigate each one individually. We do deal with them as a group. We offer the members to respond as a group to try and reduce that impact on officer time and the members' time as well. A second point, only 1 complaint has been received against a Herefordshire councillor. Happy days, and it was not upheld, so good. Point number 3, unfortunately a bit of a theme that we've discussed a few times. 25% of all complaints are still raised by parish and town councillors against other parish town councillors. We're still of the view that the majority of these should be resolved as an internal matter, or there should be at least an attempt to resolve those matters. And we have, as a committee and now as a council, recommended the use of a local resolution process by the parish and town councils. As an example, of the 25% received, only 1 complaint has moved into a formal investigation this year. In the last three years, only 3 out of 35 complaints have moved into formal investigations. So we've had to deal and process 32 complaints that went nowhere effectively, but no further action. For the current year, the main councils involved with these complaints were Ross Town Council, Kings Capel and Ledbury Town Council. Point number 5, of the 51 complaints, 4 went to full investigation and breaches were found. They're in paragraph 18 of your report. 47 were resolved at initial assessment stage, generally as there was no evidence of a breach, but also if there was an early acceptance and corrective action by a member, typically if the member has apologised already or was prepared to apologise. The last point is that, as we know, in full council may approve the committee's recommendation to adopt a voluntary local resolution process. We have notified parish and town councils of this change. 4 have replied and asked for the standard template, and we have contacted them to ask whether or not they need any further support, even if it's just a review of the process. 2 further councils have indicated they will not adopt that. Although not in the report, like Tilly mentioned, we are also noticing the size of the use of AI to assist in generating complaints. Typically, for some reason, the last one we received was 39 pages. I don't know why AI seems to like 40 pages or thereabouts, but maybe it depends on your subscription, I guess. And typically from that, we managed to collect that down to 2-page complaints. So the actual facts were 2 pages. As an example, the majority of the majority of the complaint is a rebuttal of an answer that we have yet to provide. Just to give an example of that. Generally, it contains very little information. The conclusions are sometimes nonsensical or not supported by the actual facts as presented. I don't think AI itself is the issue, but I think it does assist and make complaints easier. And I think that AI responds to the question. So if you put a question is this a breach of it, or do these facts evidence a breach? There's probably a good chance that you'll have a 39-page document saying that that is the case.
Have we ever tried asking the same question and saying, can you give us an answer of 2 pages and see how they differ?
We have tried summarising it, and it wasn't much different from what we summarised it to. But personally, I see AI as a tool to help you assist. You still have to check it. I'm not confident enough to simply rely on it. I feel that yes, it helps us get to a particular position, but then it's up to a particular officer to review and make sure that the information, the details are correct. So it helps you draft it, but you still got to read it.
I agree. Just that I know how these AI things work, and in its algorithm, and one of the first things it will do before it even compiles its answer in the split seconds that takes is look at what's the typical length of a reply of a question like this. And it'll go, oh, I better produce a 40-page reply then. And that's what it will do. Yeah.
Very successful in hitting the 39, 40 pages. In relation to recommendation C, that recommendation is that the committee discusses possible actions in relation to encourage a further uptake of the local resolution process. I guess you've got your own views on this, but my suggestions as follows, and hopefully that can inform any discussion and feedback. I don't think we should embark on a universal marketing type campaign or continue to try and treat each council as the same. I think the reason for that is that, as I've said a few times, in the last 5 years, we've got roughly 140 councils. 100 of them we've not responded. We have no contact to in relation to code of conduct. I would surmise that they've either got good relationships between their members or they have their own internal processes already that allows them to resolve those issues. Of course, there's a in-house resource issue as well. So I would prefer to focus on particular council that we could see that do generate numbers of complaints rather than a universal offer to everybody. And also that the government has said that there will be a national code coming, although they're a bit silent on the details so far and they've been quite quiet. And of course, there's been further changes at national government again. But early indications of that is that a local resolution will play part of that and it will be mandatory in any event, but we don't have the detail on that. So my suggestion would be is that we try to support councils that are voluntarily adopting. So we do offer them support. We write to them. We look at what they put in place, review it, give the comments back on any local process they put in case. We also write to those councils that have generated the most number of work for us over the last few years. If they've got one already, or if they intend to adopt them, we can make them the same offer. We can ask what it is that we can help them with. We can have a look at their templates, their documents, suggest if there's anything that some shared learning amongst them and some of the other councils. For the naysaying councils, then parish and town councils, then maybe that we should try and get a bit more information about why they're not interested and why they are. They don't believe that unlike us, that it will generate better outcomes at an earlier stage. So that's my kind of brainstorming on what we could do.
Okay.
Over to you, Chair.
Sorry, Sean. I suppose first of all, anything except that last little bit that Sean, any questions on the report generally? Some of us
Encouraging, actually, the overall tenor of the report is quite encouraging about the behaviour of our councillors in the county.
Long may it last.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chair, thank you, that you will be aware that what we tend to do with AI within our Magic Notes and other uses of it, is picking up on Sean's point, is that we use it to assist, but then it's the subject officer's responsibility to read the report, because it's her or his name that goes at the bottom and they're responsible for it. So it's a tool that helps you become more more profit, more efficient, but you have to control it.
Sorry,
Great.
make the point, Mr. Chairman, that if we really got 1,350 councillors in the county and 51 complaints in a year is remarkably little. Even though there's an increase. I mean, one of the complaints was about me. It wasn't upheld, but you know, that's one complaint in 19 years. So I've been a parish councillor, so I don't think that's too bad, really. So perhaps we ought to encourage more complaints. We're not, I mean, you know, you can complain about everything. You can complain there's too many complaints, complain there's too little, complain that Sean isn't doing a good job. But considering there's no cost, anybody can make a complaint. There's no cost. You can use AI to generate a 40-page complaint. But there is a cost. It's what we're saying.
It's a cost to us. It's not a cost to the complainant.
So actually, thanks, Sean, you're doing a good job. Speak to you later.
Thank you very much. It's my team more than myself, but I will pass the
You're
thanks.
holding back your team.
So Sean, you've got some ideas that we might think about reducing them, or I think focusing on the few councils that have issues which come up over and over again would be a way of focusing our attention on those specific ones. But it's quite difficult to get involved, isn't it, really, because they don't sort of welcome us with open arms, think, oh yes, come along and help us to sort out these issues.
I think with the ones that we have because we have quite a lot of contact with some of the members in some of the councils and the proper officer, the clerk. I don't imagine they'll turn us down if we say we're offering to do something for free, in the hope that it will reduce future demands. So it's more of an investor save almost. So it's, and that's, we don't have the resource to do it with everybody, but certainly if we offer it and it's taken up and there's the willingness to do it, I think that's where we should try to focus there.
Chris, do you think that would help the area where you are?
In Rossville, talk to anyone at any time, any place, to try and improve performance and procedures. And but I mean, it you know, for 18 or 19 years, there were no complaints raised in Ross at all, and suddenly there have been 20 or something. And it's a specific thing that I don't want to get into. I don't want to put it out there, but I mean, we can have a conversation. I mean, in other years, there's been other parish councils that have generated 15 complaints about the same incident, or there's a rubbing up of a few local strong-minded individuals. So these things are not, they're sometimes specific in specific years. So yeah, I think Rossdown Council, I can't speak for Rossdown Council obviously, but I believe it would be willing to talk to Sean at any time.
Any other thoughts from anybody? No.
I wanted to ask about the clerks quite often go to HALC for advice on any issues like this, and this code of conduct is seen as a sort of quasi-legalistic magistrate sort of position. So you're asking someone to make a decision about someone else's behaviour or conduct, and that's why they like it to be a third party, not somebody in their particular council or committee, but someone outside of it, and that's where the monitoring officer ends up. And if we can't get over that, then it's very difficult for us to progress this idea of trying to get local councils to take more responsibility, if you like, over the infighting that might be happening. So is there anything that we can do with HALC and to reassure them that it's a potential winner, it's a good idea? Otherwise, if they don't, I think we're a bit strong. I don't think there's much change we can affect.
Can I suggest, Mark, if I could answer a bit on that? When I first floated this idea, honestly, it was my idea that the ward councillor would be the, if you like, but that went down very badly. There are very few ward councillors who are willing to get involved in that, which was a disappointment to me, but I thought that would be the way it would work, because they are sort of an independent person. They know the parishes, but that was...
So like Chris, they've been on council for 19 years, that's a difficult position.
Oh, well, they would, but most ward councillors are not on all of the parish council. I've got 5 parish councillors, I'm not on any of them, so. But anyway, that didn't work out, so be it.
So,
Yeah.
see, without the support of HALC, the clerks are going to feel it's very difficult for them to recommend it to the committee.
I think that's true for some of the clerks, yes. I can't speak for all of them, but we've had approximately a dozen coming back asking us for a copy of the template from when we first floated it to now. So yes, I think we could write to HALC and explain what the position is, whether or not it changed their views. I don't know, but we're willing to at least try.
Or at least ask why they are resistant.
Well, yeah, that's it. We've seen an email that's circulated a few months back, which I didn't see the original, but I was given a copy of the text, and it doesn't really say why. It just says just say no, and that was it. So it's probably what, and at the time we decided to park that because obviously we hadn't had full council approval in any event to proceed with this. So we have that now, but it is now time to say, well, why is it just say no?
Yeah.
And so the wording of the emails talks about resolving problems. Well, we're not there to resolve problems. We're there to resolve code of conduct issues, not just I don't get on with somebody. And yes, so I agree. I think that should be part of it, and I'm quite happy to put that forward if the committee wants to do that as well. At least to get more of an idea of what their position is. It may not change, but is this something that we can work with or alleviate or work around?
Perhaps when we have the parish council summits, if we've had a few successful cases, just a handful, we don't have to give the details, but we could tell the other parish people there that, well, there were councils that have resolved, a problem through this procedure. You might want to consider it and sort of give it a little bit of reinforcement at the parish council summit.
So I think we'd encourage you to engage with the local authority, the parish councils, and also with HALC.
And then report back.
If you want any.
Would you talk at a parish council summit about it or not? Were you comfortable with that idea?
Going along talking about it, I don't have a problem. I've done it previously in other authorities. It's generally not that successful. Sometimes there's a bit of a shooting match, but
it doesn't work out, so be it.
Yes, I think what we should do is take this part forward and see where it goes. I don't want to stand at the parish council and say, yeah, you've all told me no previously, but I'm here to ask you again. Yeah, should we do this part first and then we can move on to that? Yeah.
Well, I think you said that several councils asked for the templates and documentation and so on. Paragraph 34 says actually only one, but that's not my point. Should we not send it to all of them?
We have sent it. We've emailed all of them saying that we have the documentation and letters. Do they want that? So these are the ones that just replied back and asked for it.
You don't feel inclined to send an email saying, here is the documentation of the system that we are introducing?
I can do if you want.
So, Sean, do you need us to have a vote on recommendation?
Well, I'm happy to capture that as a recommendation, and I take it you're all in favour. All in favour?
Yeah.
Which one? Sorry, could you just clarify?
Just the 3 things. Approaching the more difficult councils, how and approaching health.
Yeah. So supporting those councils that already asked for the documentation, and then writing to the council of the most complaints. I haven't said what. I'll have a look back analysis. I did an analysis on numbers, and of course because we collected total numbers, but yeah, as Bart's mentioned, what may be a problem this year and last year, but it may not have been a problem for the last 15 years, etc. So we'll look at that and we'll focus on the ones we think that we can get the most return from. If they then ask, we'll try to engage with them, try to show them what the benefits are, what support we can supply. For those who say, no, we're not interested, we'll at least try to get some information back why that is the case, to try and overcome that. And finally, we'll approach HALC as well and say, we noticed you've said no.
Yes.
Can you explain why?
If you reverse that and approach HALC first, then you can send that with the information to the council. So you can say, we have heard from HALC these objections, we have overcome these objections, and then send it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll be chasing it.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So
Yeah,
now,
we have to approve that, or?
I think Sean's going to.
Yeah, everyone's happy with that one?
So item 10, update on risk management. Right, Rachel, this one is for you again. So we've had the paper. And there's been some change, hasn't there?
So,
Speak to it.
I'll just say a few words about the Q4 update. Then the practice that we have now is that the corporate risk register is reviewed by corporate leadership team and then cabinet. So each corporate risk is reviewed and the controls and mitigating actions are updated as appropriate. At Q4, we have made one change to the scoring of the corporate risks, and that is in respect of risk 7, our inability to respond adequately to a significant emergency affecting ability to provide priority services, including severe weather, critical damage to council buildings, loss of power or infrastructure, and cyber security. So at Q4, we have updated the risk score from a previous score of 9 at Q3 to an updated score of 12 at Q4, representing likelihood of 3 possible and a major impact score. And this change reflects the continuing and evolving risks that are arising from cyber threats. We had a session at corporate leadership team and extended leadership team, so that's assistant directors as well, where we considered the impact and the cyber threats facing the council. And following that, it was deemed appropriate to upgrade that risk, and we've included some updated actions as well.
Any questions? I was at the Local Government Association conference, and there was a presentation which I had from an organisation that looks at all the contracts placed by local authorities, and they then analyse the information. They can show where you only have one supplier of a particular product or service, which makes you a bit of a hostage to fortune. There are various reasons why we might have that exclusive supply arrangement, but I was quite impressed that there is somebody who's gathering this data around us. So I suppose a bit of my question on R9, Rachel, would be how far have we got in analysing the situation with these key suppliers and financial failure, and that have any actions been taken as a result of looking at that risk?
I mean, in terms of, I know you've sent me an email about that particular supply. Yeah. We are already working with that particular company on a separate issue, and we did speak to them a couple of years ago when we first started work on some of that additional activity that they could carry out for us. For me, there were some limitations in the data they collected, and so we didn't take them up on that quite expensive offer at the time, but it's something that I would revisit. I think in terms of the original failure that drove this particular risk, it was quite one-off, and we put some very quick and responsive measures in place to continue service provision. We continue to monitor that in terms of making sure that we don't engage with high risk suppliers through the robust controls around procurement and looking at the financial credibility and risk assessment of the people that we're entering into contracts with. I think possibly there's further work we could do to understand our exposure in terms of that work with the supplier that you've identified. So I think I'll take that away and consider whether that's something we'd want to revisit.
Yeah. I suppose where I'd be going with it is, how long does this need to stay on the register? Because we might get to the stage where we've done that modelling analysis, we've taken some actions, and it ceases to be a.
This becomes BAU. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we can think about that.
Thanks, Rachel. I've got two questions. One is on R6 and the other one is on R8. So on R6, which is on page 84 of our handout of the big batch. This is about skills and understanding skills, recruitment for skills and skills are availability. But it's also about retention. So retention is based on, in my experience, that people look forward to staying at a place because there is progression. Okay, so they like the place, want to stay put in their job, but they may also be looking forward to progression. And to that end, is there a way, are we trying to identify all the different job descriptions in-house, in the council, so that people can see what's available and what they could, you know, somebody might be in the job, there's not a vacancy at that time, but that is what they need to do. These are the steps I'd need to take if I wanted to take that role or that role. And this might not even be in my same directorate, in my same department. It might be in another department. You keep the knowledge in-house, which is fantastic. You keep all that local information and that skill set. So really, there should be some way that HR is providing a skills list, but also a stepping stone system that people can see, right, if I want to progress, this is how I can do it. Gives you lots of reassurance, makes people want to stay, gives clarity of how I can get the job and what I need to learn in order to do that job. And I think that's better than just waiting until there's a vacancy.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would support your comment that progression is a contributing factor to our good retention rates. And I think we do have good retention rates here at the council. I think there are some pockets of services that have greater opportunities for progression than others, just due to the nature of the work. What's highlighted in this report as one of the mitigating actions is the council's leadership programme. So that does identify those opportunities, not just for progression within your particular skill set and service area, but in terms of developing those wider leadership skills. So recognising that as people progress through the ranks in the council, you become less of a subject matter expert and more reliant on that expertise within your service, because it's about managing and leading delivery. Yeah, so we have a really strong offer here through those 4 elements of the programme: grow, aspire, empower and innovate. And the HR and OD team work really well across the organisation to identify suitable candidates to ensure that we've got that career and leadership development progression, in addition to the work that individual services are doing to highlight those opportunities to broaden and make individuals have experience different elements of the service.
What I can say, Mark, is that in previous experience, not everybody actually wishes to progress and stay. Some people are very comfortable and very happy what they're doing. It doesn't say they're going off the ball, but they're just happy with it. But what I can say is that Rachel Jones and the OD team, they offer, it's a very strong offering across the council. I think it's 83%, isn't it? We get happy, 80% of the employees are happy and will promote Herefordshire Council as a preferred employer. So we've got a very good offering there, and wherever anyone wants to be challenged and move on, then it's there for if they wish to go.
We've just undertaken that employee survey that the council startup referred to, and we're in the process now of analysing the results and the feedback. But certainly in previous years, those that feedback has informed then how we approach organisational development and leadership, and I'd expect the same again, so that we can tailor that programme of activity to ensure that we do retain skilled and talented staff in the council.
Right. Can I ask on R8?
Any observations on that?
Thank you, Chair. So on R8, I was just wondering, we've had 3 heat waves, and there may be more coming up. How come we're still stuck on a likelihood of 3? Isn't the likelihood more like 4 is probable now rather than possible, that there will be water restrictions, there would be a drought, there will be hosepipe bans, but there could be a whole bunch of things, especially in a rural county. that we should be concerned about, and that, you know, there's evidence here that there's a problem. So this is a R8. I was wondering why, with the risks in West Mercia, that we've talked about cyber terrorism and cyber security, but what about water security?
I mean, this is an update at Q4, so I appreciate.
Yeah, is it going to be? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something we can consider as part of future updates, considering the climate events that we've had in the new financial year.
And it's not just water, it's health.
Yeah.
To do with heat.
Yeah.
I think specifically in relation to water, I can say, because in my ward, Brockhampton School, by the Brockhampton School, there's a reservoir there. And we've had the road has been closed for nearly 4 weeks now while Welsh Water have been moving water on. So I've been engaged with quite a few people in Welsh Water. And actually they've confirmed to me that across the county, we do not face a hosepipe ban. We do not face water shortages because of the ongoing management that they have. So I think 3 from a water area, but it's the specifics of each of those individuals. They will change.
To know that they've got, when people see Bowsers driving up and down, you know, and there was some in Hereford apparently the other day in Homer, when people think, oh, we're running out of water, you know, why are they bringing?
All they're doing is simply rebalancing it so that everybody's water supply carries on the form. As I explained to a few residents, let the operational team in Welsh Water, who are very good at what they do what they do.
Yeah, so I think the request is really just to look at that, which you will do. You do normally anyway. So.
Yeah, should be considering the events in the
Robert, yeah.
R3, the SEN issue. It says that the cannot be met in Herefordshire and or out of the county. We know the problems within Herefordshire. But is there an indication that at the moment we have this problem of shipping people to Worcestershire? But is there an indication that there may not be the capacity to do that? Is that why that's such a high risk?
Sorry, just looking at the comment you're referring to, that's regarding, you're looking at the corporate risk. Yeah, so we cannot meet the needs of children in Hereford currently. We do not have to.
But the other part of the risk is that, and out of the county placements is also a risk. So is there an indication that we're running out of places out of the county?
No, we are meeting that need through the out of county placements, so with a focus on then improving sufficiency. But no, to answer your question, we have not run out of county placement.
So I'm wondering why that risk is still, because we have, you know, we're undergoing expenses trying to move children out. That's a major issue. But the risk is here is identified as not only that we can't meet the places here, but maybe we can't meet the outside. That's why it says that is not a risk.
No, I didn't say that it wasn't a risk. I said that currently we are meeting the need. So the risk remains. The controls and mitigating actions is that the service are, you know, identifying those appropriate placements in other counties.
So that was just what I was asking. Is there an indication that outside of the county they're running out of places that we could use in future or not?
I don't have that information, but that's something I can take away.
Shouldn't it be in here then if there was that indication?
Again, I think perhaps you could just take that back to there's a question here which I think the committee considers the frequency of future risk management activity updates. We tend to think it goes to CLT and then to cabinet, and then we have an audit after that. So it's quarterly.
Yeah.
Is there any reason why it should be any less frequent than that? Okay, I didn't see any kind of argument in the paper to suggest one way or the other.
We're in the habit.
Yeah.
Routine a bit now.
So I think, Jen, the next time we don't need to consider it again. So we just carry on quarterly. Thank you. No vote required on that one. So move swiftly. Financial statement audit progress. Rachel, are you taking that or trades? Yeah, Stacey. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this report updates the committee on the progress to date on the external audit of the draft financial statements for the year ending 31st of March 2026. As reported at the June committee meeting, the draft financial statements were published on the 29th of May, ahead of the statutory deadline, and the audit started 2 weeks earlier than scheduled. We're currently on target with the audit plan, and to date, no material errors have been found by the auditors. Grant Thornton have committed to completing the auditing time to allow them to present the audit findings report and opinion to this committee on the 29th of September, which will allow the council to publish the audited financial statements well before the statutory publication deadline, the 31st of December 2027. So Appendix A of the report has been prepared by Grant Thornton, so I'm going to hand over to Oscar and we'll talk us through that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, as you've just alluded to, the report I'm sharing today is our latest sector update report. So this is a report that we share with all audit committees on a regular basis across the year when new information comes out. So as you'll see, the first several pages of the report gives a brief update on the progress of the audit, along with any early findings, and the remainder of the report contains information on the latest sector updates, which is more for committee members to read to ensure you stay informed of those updates. So to give a brief update on the actual audit itself, so I would say so far it's progressing very well. I'd like to commend the finance team for answering our questions so quickly. That's been really good to see, and it's allowing us to turn around the audit quite quick. So as was mentioned, we received the draft accounts on time on the 29th of May. So this was actually really good for us because we was able to start the audit a little bit earlier than what we intended. So we've got a couple of extra weeks in June to get ahead of the game with some of our procedures. So our aim is to sign the audit at the end of September at the 29th of September committee. So far, I haven't seen anything which would put that in doubt. Our testing is progressing well. The majority of our samples are now out. So all of our significant risk samples are out. So that includes investment properties, property, plant, equipment valuation. Our sample as well is out. Our team have been working on site once a week in July. And when we come on site, we're mainly concentrating on closing individual samples down by expenditure and income, because we're here and we can come in and ask questions, and it's the most efficient way to do it. Going into August, we're going to be concentrating on closing down all the significant risk areas of the audit. I hope to share the draft reports with management by the early part of September. And just to repeat, nothing's been identified yet in the audit which is a cause for concern. In terms of the value for money side of things, so this area is ongoing. I don't have full updates yet on the value for money part of the audit, but I can say their work will primarily focus in the early stages on following up prior years' recommendations. So that's everything from me, but happy to take any questions on the audit opinion.
Questions?
I've not got a question. Provide some information on the value for money work as well. So that's a really important piece of work alongside the audit of the financial statements. That covers those three principles of financial sustainability, governance, and then what we call the 3 E's: economy, efficiency, and effectiveness in the use of resources. And that culminates in the auditor's annual report that you receive in September. So really important piece of work. Again, we've now responded to all of the information requests by the team carrying out that piece of work, and we've also had several meetings with relevant members of staff. So principally that starts with directors, chief exec, and then other officers as required. So those are underway and we'll continue to engage in that process as well. Just another note from me, the accounts were made available for public inspection on the date of publication, and they were available for a period of 30 working days, and we received no inquiries through that route this year, which has not always been the case. Yeah.
Peter?
We had quite a thank you. We had quite a discussion this earlier informally about the pros and cons of internal audit being placed out or being in-house. Would Grant Thornton have any thoughts on that, and would there be any cost implications or benefits of the two alternatives?
It's an interesting question. That's a question I've not had before. So I've seen it both ways, to be honest. I've worked with councils that have external and internal audit departments. I personally have never seen any differences in quality of work or anything like that. But I wouldn't like to say about any cost implications of that. I wouldn't know the answer to that one.
Okay, well, thanks for that. So essentially, really, you're saying it's beyond one's experience at the moment. Yeah, okay.
Kerry?
Audit requirements are changing all the time. Are there any areas which are new this year, which are under scope?
Yeah, I think the only area that's new this year is the new requirements around property, plant and equipment valuations. So there's basically a new requirement that says the valuations have to be carried out on a 5-year cyclical basis. And then in the intervening years, so it would be, for example, if it's a 5-year basis, 20% of your assets are valued every year, full valuation. And then in the intervening years, there's like a desktop valuation using indices. So that's the change. Previously, you wouldn't have had that indices bit in the intervening years. So there is an element of work we have to do on that. But I think the primary thing with that really is the selection of the indices. So are the indices that's being used reasonable? And that would be the basis of our work.
Yeah. And are there any other new things coming up in the next couple of years that we should be aware of?
Not that I'm aware of at the moment. No.
So just a couple of things on that. On the indexation, as part of the reports that we bring to you in March each year, we bring an update on the accounting estimates and judgments that we make, and the valuation of property, plant and equipment is one of those key areas of estimation and judgment. We use an external firm of RICS valuers, and they provide the indices for us. So the audit test will be around the inputs of that valuation. Interestingly, across the sector, that approach was designed and intended to reduce the level of audit testing, reduce the burden on auditors and finance teams. I'm not sure whether that's been successful, because of the extensive requirements on firms like yours. So we will see, and again, that was part of the recovery measures to, we've reset following the changes in the backstop dates, etc. But now it's about recovery. So that was intended to support that burden on finance teams and external audit firms as well. In terms of changes, the code consultation, we prepare the accounts to the SIPFA code of practice, and each year that changes. So SIPFA issued a consultation yesterday, and we'll prepare a response to that, as well as me supporting it through other routes across the sector. And that will propose a number of changes to the code of practice next year that might have an impact on how we prepare the accounts, and then a corresponding impact on the audit requirement for that. So each year those things change, and we'll review and liaise with audit on that.
But because you have submitted your accounts on time in full, you are in a good place to continue that through.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really proud of the technical accounting team that we have here. It's a bit of a passion area of mine. I love the financial statements, always have. It's a great technical document. I'm a huge fan of
Commented on that before. You live in a different world to me.
I'm a proud nerd in this area. I'm a proud ex-auditor as well. So I place a lot of value in the production of a high quality, technically competent, accurate, materially accurate set of financial statements. And the team that prepare those statements are equally committed. We have two different aspects of finance. We have kind of the management accounts, business partnering, and their passion is around working with services and engaging with people. The technical accounting team, and they won't mind me saying this, are less people-y. And they're much more comfortable with a spreadsheet and a calculator and a really complex piece of accounting standard to kind of work through, and I'm really proud that we have those two specialisms here in the council, and I'm not ashamed of it.
No.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you very much, by the way, Oscar, for the audit committee resources that is in there. I have clicked on them, did look through it. And there's masses stayed there. But what I want to ask is about adjustments after, year-end closure. So we're talking about 25, 26. One of the big things that happened throughout this year, earlier, it was the change from Balfour Beatty to M Group.
Mm.
Is that having any impact at that end, that year end, or is it going to be next year that you're going to feel that?
I'm not.
Because of property, plant and equipment.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
absolutely no
thinking.
impact on property, plant and equipment, because that's the land and building assets that the council records on its balance sheet. In terms of the accounting transactions, obviously any transaction, we account for income and expenditure on what's called a matching concept. And so any income and expenditure that relates to a financial year will be included. So obviously we'll consider ensuring that all relevant expenditure up to the period end date with our contract with Balfour Beatty is included, and that will be in the 26-27 financial year. But it doesn't have any implications in respect of the year ended 31st of March 2026.
Thanks.
Pete.
I was just going to say that, of course, the Balfour, we didn't change till 1st of June yet.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
actually it's in this.
That's right. Yeah. So it will go appear in the next year's.
Oscar, are we still valuing our roads?
No,
We used to, so.
Well, it's still in the balance sheet.
No,
It has a value, isn't it?
I do remember that. Yeah, no, it's.
And if they are a balance in the balance sheet, they should be valued higher because they're in better condition now. Thanks to our cabinet.
There's one political point at this meeting. So, Oscar and Rachel, thank you very much. Thank you, your teams. It's good. It's great that we can get the accounts to bed and officers get on with saving.
Yes.
Budget setting and dealing with savings in the current year. So thank you very much for that. So finally, we're on to the internal audit. We have two papers here. Thank you for your patience, Lucy. Welcome again. Do you want to go through the report, the update first of all?
Thank you. First report is the update of the work that we've undertaken since the last meeting of this committee. Today you have 3 final reports in your pack, which are for quarter protection, payroll and licensing temporary event notices. The transport hub report, which I have concluded, but I haven't received final sign-off, so I'm unable to present to this committee. But I had Scott responded to say it was a fair report. I just need final sign-off, but I am proposing to close 4 of the agreed actions that were included in the previous report, Transport Hub you saw. The other agreed actions aren't due until, I think, December time. But as soon as I get an update, I can let the committee know, but you'll see that report at the next committee. We've issued the public protection report last week. So again, that will be included in your pack for next time. And also I'll be very hopeful that Treasury Management will have got that over the line as well in time for the next committee meeting. All the other audits are progressing well that are in the schedule. We continue to follow up all agreed actions. And what I did this time is put a little bit more information in because there are 6 open agreed actions for all ages commissioning and there are 10 agreed actions for foster care placements, and we've currently got that audit in progress. So I'm very hopeful that, again, a lot of those agreed actions will be removed by the next time we come to this committee. So happy to take any questions on the progress report, Chair.
So Lisa, the transport hub. I understand the person who's due to sign it off is on holiday at the moment. And rather than waiting till the September meeting, I'd like it to be completed before then. Otherwise, September will come along, and it's been on the paper in the schedule for a long time. So my request, if it's agreed by the committee, is to say that we'd like that final report published within 2 weeks, but it's dependent upon the director being willing to sign it off.
Yeah,
between Rachel and
yes, I'm happy to email it out to the committee as soon as I've finalised it.
Please.
I have to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for a response from John.
Yeah. Okay, so if that could be done in the next 14 days, that's okay. Who's going to communicate that to the director?
I'm happy to. I
Okay.
can follow up in that. I'll copyright for them.
Yeah, thank you very much. And the treasury management, that's again been going on for quite some time. Are you comfortable, Lucy, that this can be
Yes.
reviewed quite quickly? I mean, again, do we want that to come out more quickly, Rachel, or do you want a little more time to?
I said we've agreed that's a reasonable assurance. There are 2 recommendations, I think, of quite a low priority rating. And the onus is on me to provide some information in response to a recommendation around member training. I'm just confirming the date that was provided, and then we are, minutes away from signing that off.
Yeah, I'm not so worried about doing that one, having a time scale, but I think if we could have the same time scale, that would get those 2 off the list. Okay, well, I must confess I found it quite helpful reading the reports. The sort of colour coding, and I can see some very practical applications, and it to me it reads like good English and common words. Is there anybody else any questions on any of these reports, or are there any issues you think we should be concerned about, Lucy?
The thing I would add, and it's not an issue, is that I met with Helen Morgan last week to discuss the court protection reports, because she's doing a big piece of work. I don't want to say it's transformation, because that's not quite the right word, but she's going to use our reports and build those into her processes. So we're going to help support her in that going forward, and that's on this court protection report plus the historic one we viewed back in 2024.
You don't specifically do internal audit for Hoople, is that right? Or I may be treading on dangerous ground here, but how do we work with, and particularly in the context of the payroll? The first one was talking about, they sign off something, but there's no protocol to say they should be signing it off. So
what we like to do is we speak to Hoople because they provide services to the council. So what we'd like to do is give assurances to the council on the services that Hoople are providing. That's why it reads slightly differently, because Hoople have got more an advisory report saying we think maybe you would consider this, which will help them improve the services that the council receives. So there's, in a way, we're auditing once, but maybe reporting twice.
Yeah, I think it sort of reflects a little bit of the relationship with Hoople, which can be clarified a bit more. More transparent.
Yep.
Kerry, did you have any questions on the?
On the court of protection report, you've audited the process that exists. Do you actually look at the individuals that are in the pot as to whether there's any problems with them being in there? You know how in some areas people are challenging that they've got in and can't get out.
I don't think that was included as part of the scope of that audit, but I guess it's something that could be built into future audits.
That the pool is the right pool.
Yeah.
Thank you. So Lucy, on page 119 of our pack of your report, there's the section on action tracking. And you say that 39 of the open actions are historic. 6 are from 24-25 for all ages, and 10 are from foster care placements 24-25. So those are very old. They've been hanging around for a long time. And you said you will continue to gain an update from responsible officers, continue to get an update and report updates to the committee. So, or it says any actions not remediated will be discussed with officers. Is there anything new you can do? Because obviously if it's been outstanding for nearly 2 years and you're just using the same techniques, is there another approach, another way, or is it time to restructure those particular updates and those actions and decide, right, well, let's mothball them, roll them up and create a new one?
Yeah.
Or is it out of date? Is it out of date?
Discussion with officers and Rachel,
Yeah.
we can go through those, and Rachel and I did that. We had a previous exercise like that, didn't we? And we did, because they're not relevant anymore. So we were able to remove them.
Yeah.
And it may be that these are in a similar place, but foster care is currently being followed up anyway. So those 10 will be picked up as part of the audit. I'll specifically look at all ages commissioning when I go back to the office tomorrow, and I'll look at the other historic ones, and I'll send Rachel.
So long as they're not buried, there's a reason given for them.
I wouldn't like to bury or hide anything. That's not what I do.
I am concerned about that from a governance point of view, because if by not addressing the actions, they slide to very, very old and then become not relevant, isn't there an incentive not to address things? Because they just drop off.
I suppose my question would be then to the committee is, what information do you want to receive? This obviously isn't sufficient information for you. How much do you want to go into the detail?
That 20 that's sitting there over 91 days, I would like to have an analysis of what is stopping them happening. You know, the underlying, you know, is there a block of some sort, or is there a problem? You know, but by the time that topic gets audited a second time, those are still outstanding actions.
And that's all information that's held in our audit management system.
Yeah, I think that analysis of that 20.
Yeah.
And then
I think we can bring that next time.
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
you and I can work on that together
Yeah.
and bring that analysis with some explanations as to why they
I think we do need that.
And I think if we focus on the ones that are overdue, that's broadly half.
Yeah, yeah, we can do that. Yeah,
we can do that.
I think the ultimate sanction is to get you're trying to get the information up to come to this committee and explain it.
Yes.
I think
It's down to me.
I think that, you know, I do meetings and I'm encouraged to actually.
definitely. It is.
Peter, you can drag a meeting.
Invested.
That'd be great.
No, but it's kind of Foster is so important and they're doing so
Yeah.
well. It seems a bit inconsistent to me that we bring someone forward, but we could do that, or we can leave you to do the analysis.
No, I think standing just there, it's really when I haven't done the action.
Like that.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
Sandbag on the head and
There's a new risk with fostering in that the government is proposing that the process of selecting new approved foster parents will bypass the foster committee completely and go directly to the agency decision maker. That's their proposal. Nobody on the fostering panel likes that. I think I've spoken to all of them, and it is a risk that things can go wrong because of that. The depth of wisdom of those people on the panel that is assessing people. And we've seen nationally, there's been some horror stories about it. So I would put that as a new risk that the government is introducing.
And that doesn't relate to the audit. So what do we
It sort of does.
you're going to come back to us at the next meeting, an
Yeah.
analysis of that lot. And
We'll do two things. We will go away and kick.
Yes.
Encourage individuals to respond, and then we will bring some analysis of the overdue items as at quarter two.
Yeah, we can do that.
Will that come to September? Or will it not quite be ready? I mean, regardless whether quarter two comes in September, we can bring in an analysis of the overdue actions.
But the possibility being that they be required to explain themselves.
Yes, it's a report to the commission, yes. Could I just say that there is, on the audit board, you're right, there's loads of detail in the background. I copied out a whole bunch of it, and it's in, I think, reverse date order, and there's loads of actions there. We don't need to know all that stuff.
No,
That's the thing, I don't want you to bring that to us.
It will be in a similar format, but I will extrapolate what it is exactly you need to see, so it'll be the most up to date.
It's the obstacles.
Yeah, it's you know, is it all in one department? Is it all for one reason?
Yes.
You know, what's the shape of it?
Yeah, leave that with me.
And now, Robert, just to come back to your point about perhaps it's a risk that's emerging. So is that something which you the adult children's director?
Sorry, I introduced it in the middle of some other discussion, but it's of concern to me that I think that it is a genuine risk. The justification for it is that 97% of applications are approved. So why bother to go through the first panel, put it straight to the agency decision maker? But the agency decision maker is able to make a confident confirmation because of that process. And I don't think 97% will get accepted without the foster panel being involved. So there may be a more lengthy, we may lose some foster parents because the agency decision maker may feel, well, I don't know enough to agree to this.
Is that an audit issue?
I think it's a
risk management.
Risk of cost and loss of, it's money.
It's representing.
So what we would do around that, the process for something being added to the audit plan isn't necessarily just because it's an emerging risk. So what we'll do is discuss some of those new risks and changes in practices with the relevant directorate team. So in this case, it would be Tina Russell and Children and Young People. And you would consider the controls that are in place and discuss that with Tina. Typically, if there's a change, we might want to understand any further risks to weaknesses in controls. But I suggest that's probably something that you could take up with Tina. We've got the next item is the audit plan, but we've got some capacity within the audit plan to add new items on this year. So I think that's probably one of the things that Lucy can go away and discuss with Tina and add if required.
Okay, good. So Sean just reminded me that we possibly need a vote on the time period by which the two reports are to come. 14 days was what I suggested. 14 days or 10 working days or 14 working days. 14 ordinary days.
Do we have real days?
Real days. Does anybody, I would like to propose that. Any, thank you. All in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, Sean, all right.
Yep, all good. Thank you.
So moving on then to the audit plan. Rachel, your author of this, but I guess, you know.
Happy to introduce. So this report presents the proposed internal audit plan for 26-27. The plan has been informed by discussions with directorates and also other in consideration of other sources of assurance and the corporate risk register. We've identified audits presented in their link to the corporate risk and provided an indication of that coverage. I think with Lucy, we have identified some additional areas that we will now continue to discuss and including new items such as the one that just discussed in order to add some further audits to the plan, ensuring that spread of coverage across directorates and also those corporate risks. So, you've got anything to add?
Nothing else to add. Thank you, Rachel.
So the link to corporate register, there's a specific column, and I relate that back then to Appendix A, the corporate risk register. And I suppose my concern really is over the children's directorates. We've come such a long way. We want to make sure we don't slip back. There's no commissioner involved. There's not the focus, which there has been. And I think internal audit has really not done much work in the children's directorate area because everybody's been all over it. And I think we mustn't slip back. And certainly I think in cooperation with the director of that area and the cabinet member responsible, then I think I'd like them to look at this a little bit more carefully to see what work might possibly be done in the children's area. Peter.
Can I just say that you mentioned that we don't slip back and that lots of focus. What I can say is categorically that has not happened. I get sitting in here every Thursday morning, children and people discussed regularly, and when we go to cabinet feeder and Tina and Russell was there in most meetings with Ivan. So whilst we are constantly seeking to improve ourselves, I can give you my most categorical assurance that no one is taking the foot off the gas pedal.
Very,
very much.
I've talked on this a lot, and absolutely, they're not satisfied with this. They want outstanding, is what they're after for the next 3 years. So,
if I can just add again, internal audit is part of our assurance framework. So alongside internal audit work, what we have in the Children and Young People Directorate is a lot of quality assurance work that previously was part of the improvement plan, but now forms part of their directorate business plan. So the absence of internal audit work specifically in the Children and Young People Directorate, and this is one of the areas where we've we've identified some additional scope to add to the plan. But it forms part of a bucket of assurance, I think, and a lot of that is linked to the external regulation that we've had. But there are some continuing themes of that quality assurance throughout the directorate to ensure that the improvement that has been in place and been recognised now continues and is sustained.
It's adult services that we're looking to get more improvement now. So if there's any help that the audit process can give to that process, that would probably be more of a focus at the moment. For as long as we've got the current team in children's services, I think Peter will confirm that we're confident that that's going to press on. And not criticising the team in adult services, they've got external problems they've got to face. That's part of the issue. So,
but part of that is that the financial team that are embedded in adult are learning from the financial team that are embedded in children's.
Yes.
So those best practices are being cascaded across both departments.
Yes.
So that there are spare hours and adults and children's. I think actually.
And again,
got a list of areas.
Yeah, I've got a list of areas to look at, which does include adults as well.
Thank you. Should all the internal audit plan be aligned to corporate risks? Because I can see R5 gets a lot and R1, R4, but there's two in is it operational audits that aren't aligned. I'm just wondering why isn't there an opportunity to align them? So on page 133 on the chart, corporate performance is not applicable, and public realm change management says not applicable. So I'm just wondering why they're not.
I mean, the internal audit plan is informed by the risk register, but there doesn't always have to be a direct link, because we don't just audit because there's an emerging risk. We might audit because there's a change in practice, or some of the grant work that's carried out is because there's a requirement within the individual grant. Sometimes it's around compliance, and we've highlighted that here.
Yeah, I've seen the compliance ones.
We are identifying a link to a corporate risk where it's relevant and appropriate. And I'm comfortable that in some instances there isn't that direct link, and we've noted that here. Again, for me, the benefit of having the link to the corporate risk register is so that when SWAT prepare the head of internal audit opinion at the end of the year, which informs the annual governance statement and the assessment of the overall control and governance framework, we can consider whether there is adequate coverage through this source as part of, again, that bucket of assurance. Just because we don't have 10 audits against each corporate risk doesn't mean that there is a lack of assurance in each of those risk areas.
Okay, anybody else, any thoughts on this bit of the programme? Well, we'll see it back later on in the year. I think
We make a commitment that if we do add things on that, probably come as an appendix to the quarterly update to show how the plan is being changed. Yeah.
Thank you. So we do have a recommendation here. The committee approves the proposal for an audit plan, I guess, subject to getting updates and using up the extra time. I do have, I know what you say, Peter, about the emphasis and working really at it, not wanting to slip back, but I feel that there shouldn't be any resistance, and I'm sure there isn't, to internal doing work in this. You should almost be welcoming and saying, yes, we really want you to work more, and I'd hope there would be that welcoming, and there will be a amendment to the plan that you.
I quite agree. I don't think if you wish to add it, we wouldn't be pushing back on it. But all I'm just saying to you is that it is definitely it's one of our number one priorities. As Robert mentioned, from his perspective, he sees it outside. But I can give you the assurance in cabinet that it is not one of our number one priorities.
And cabinet don't approve the internal audit plan.
No, we do.
CLT review it, and audit and governance committee review it. So it's not politically driven. SWAP are an independent body that support our internal audit function. And likewise, if a director was resistant to receiving audit, which I can confirm they are absolutely not in this instance, Lucy and I would have a discussion as we do around the whole coverage, and we would take that up formally. But again, I'd like to remind everybody that this is one of the tools in our toolbox around assurance and quality assessment. And I am assured that there are sufficient and appropriate measures within the Children and Young People Directorate to ensure that that quality is sustained as we continue through the journey.
Okay. And this is not about politics, this is about adults, of course not children.
We had the one politics thing already, that's done with now.
Great. So we approve the audit and subject to the sort of observations and comments. Thank you very much. The work programme.
Agreed, Chair. Sorry, I didn't get any hands. No, I agree, I didn't get any hands.
Is that all, a vote to vote? Yes. Thank you very much. Yes, good. Aubrey, do you want to vote? Yes, well, good. Right. So the work programme, I always like your sheet like this, Jen, thanks very much. You're down to talk to this one, so you want to talk to this one?
Chair, then what we've gone through in the meeting.
Okay. Anybody have got any comments, thoughts? No. Right, well, we look forward especially to the meeting on the 29th of September. Well, yeah. It's the September quarter date for payment of rent in the old days. Yes, you and I remember that from
Quarter days.
Okay, any comments on that? Is that all right? Do we need to vote on that? Just for noting, so thank you for your attendance today. That brings us to the end of the meeting. Our next meeting will be on the Tuesday, the 29th of September, and I ask the live stream be stopped.
Oh, no, we didn't.